The unexamined life is one not worth living. Socrates. In this short journey of life, every human is familiar with the hardships and difficulty that life has to offer. Difficult as life is, it is not surprising that there are antagonizers that threaten and terrorize the peace of mind of good living people. There are forces that wish to see you live a life of suffering and misery. This is seen in the temptations we are presented with in daily life. Vices that brand themselves as natural and healthy. These Trojan horses are the greatest enemy to the security of your peace of mind. For there is no greater enemy than the one that corrupts from within. Therefore, as your peace of mind is under siege, it is your responsibility and duty that you see to it that these negative influences lose their power within your mind and that you thwart the negative habits that propagate such parasites. Your brain and mind, you, face the greatest enemy that humankind has ever faced, and that is the parasite of vice that consumes, that conquers your brain and rots from within. Thus, as we find each other under attack, we face our own Herculean crossroads. We may either capitulate and become the zombie of an oppressive parasite, or we may thwart this evil parasite and unleash our inner greatness. Assuming that, with your continuing attention, you are as Hercules. You wish to see yourself reach the highest peaks your potential allows you. You are the embodiment of what makes humans great. So, let us discuss the methods and strategies that we may use to thwart the enemy of man's greatness. The greatest ally you may ever have is yourself. If you treat this person right, if you treat yourself with love and respect, you may find within yourself an indomitable ally, an endless reserve of greatness to rely on. However, if you do not know yourself, if you are disconnected and lost from yourself, you are lost from this great ally. Thus, to discover yourself at the peak of self-love and respect is of the highest order and priority in this great effort to reconquer your brain and claim your peace of mind. To discover yourself is to know yourself. Therefore, we must get to know ourselves better. There's no better way to get to know ourselves better than to ask. We must ask ourselves the origin of every thought, the significance and validity of their contents, and what that thought contributes to our peace. We must perform our own Socratic method of inquiry upon ourselves. But what is the Socratic method of inquiry? Let us hear the words of Richard Kraut as he explains the Socratic method of inquiry. Socratic method, a form of logical argumentation originated by the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates. Although the term is now generally used as a name for any educational strategy that involves the cross-examination of students by their teacher, the method used by Socrates in the conversations recreated by his student Plato follows a more specific pattern. Socrates describes himself not as a teacher, but as an ignorant inquirer. As the series of questions he asks are designed to show that the principal question he raises, for example, what is piety, is one to which his interlocutor has no adequate answer. Typically, the interlocutor is led by a series of supplementary questions to see that he must withdraw the answer he at first gave to Socrates' principal question, because the answer falls afoul of the other answers he has given. The method employed by Socrates, in other words, is a strategy for showing that the interlocutor's several answers do not fit together as a group, thus revealing to the interlocutor his own poor grasp of the concepts under discussion. In Plato's Socratic dialogue, Euthyphro, for example, The character after whom the dialogue is named, having been asked what piety is, replies that it is whatever is dear to the gods. Socrates continues to probe, and the ensuing give and take can be summarized as follows. Socrates, are piety and impiety opposites? Euthyphro, yes. Socrates, are the gods in disagreement with each other about what is good, what is just, and so on? Yes. So the very same actions are loved by some gods and hated by others? Yes. So those same actions are both pious and impious? Yes. The interlocutor, having been refuted by means of premises he himself has agreed to, is free to propose a new answer to Socrates' principal question, or another conversational partner, who has been listening to the preceding dialogue, is allowed to take his place. But although the new answers proposed by Socrates' principal question avoid the errors revealed in the preceding cross-examination, fresh difficulties are uncovered. And, in the end, the ignorance of Socrates is revealed as a kind of wisdom, whereas the interlocutors are implicitly criticized for failing to realize their own ignorance. It would be a mistake, however, to suppose that because Socrates professes ignorance about certain questions, he suspends judgment about all matters whatsoever. On the contrary, he has some ethical convictions about which he is completely confident, and he tells his judges his defense speech during his trial for impiety and corrupting the young, as rendered in Plato's dialogue Apology. Human wisdom begins with the recognition of one's own ignorance. The unexamined life is not worth living. Ethical virtue is the only thing that matters, and truly good human beings cannot be harmed, because no matter what misfortunes they may suffer, including poverty, physical injury, or even death, their virtue will remain intact. But Socrates is painfully aware that his insights into these matters leave many of the most important ethical questions unanswered. It is left to his student Plato, using the Socratic method as a starting point and ranging over subjects that Socrates neglected, to offer positive answers to these questions. In the pursuit of self-knowledge and discovery, we are the solution to every problem. We carry within ourselves the answer to every question. We are the source to whatever peace or suffering we experience. All we have to do is inquire and question ourselves with the utmost care and intensity. We must leave no stone unturned in the pursuit of self-knowledge. We must search within ourselves the source of every discomfort, every emotion, and every thought as if our life depends on it, because it does. In the living of life, we must never be as passive as an idle student, but, rather, we must be both teacher and student at once. We must be both observers and scrutinizers, because we must never be passive but active beings in the living of life. We must become active thinkers and dissect our own brain. In this way, we may create and control our own thoughts, and not the other way around. To reconquer your brain is an accomplishment that gives you the freedom and control to harness your greatness and unleash it as the great beings we are. This task of control over our brain is not of significance so that we may say that we are great, but rather so that we may do something with our greatness. To enter a state of greatness, we must first enter a state of peace. That means we must win the war over our mind. Only if you have been in the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain. Richard Nixon. Your brain and its knowledgeable wrinkles is your most valuable asset. It is your life. It is your destiny. Your brain is your inner citadel, and your mind is your fortress. So let us be wary of the influences and thoughts we let reside in our mind. Your thoughts and the influences around you are, so to speak, the residents of your mind. They may either serve you or be the parasites that harm you. The thoughts that serve you are the positive ones that reinforce a healthy mental well-being. These are the thoughts that you need to promote and foster. The parasitic thoughts within you are the negative ones that harm your well-being and destroy you from the inside. Therefore, to reconquer your brain, we must develop a strategy for conducting such a campaign. Let us break this strategy into numbered steps. First, we must know that this is a campaign of reconquering. We are taking back what is ours. This is the very foundation of our endeavor, that we know we are in control. Second, we must form a disciplined army of thoughts. Quantity is quality. The more we attempt and repeat, the more ground we take. Third, know that this is a war that will see many battles. We will gain and lose ground. There will be times of low and high morale among your thought army. You will face times where your force is as thunder and times where you're backed into a corner. However, know that along the journey to your highest peak, your movement will always be forward. Whether you stumble into dark valleys of hell or summit a peak, know that any step taken with your greater good in mind is a step in the right direction. Fourth, know you only stop fighting when you die. So, as long as we're alive, let us put up the good fight and live the good life. Let us together make life worth living. Now, let us fight the good fight. Think of your brain as having sectors. Some parts are owned by parasites you don't want up there, because that is your mind. And all of its territory must be controlled by you, or else you will either be controlled by some outside influence, or carry around with you a parasite that slowly consumes your brain. So, we must recapture and secure all the sectors within our brain so that we may be free of parasites. This will be an arduous effort, and every brain is unique. That is why I'm only giving you the strategy for this campaign. Every person has their own wars to fight. However, we do not have to fight them alone. That's why I'm here. As we may only guide each other, let us all guide each other in the right direction. The strategy only works if you put the work in. Do the dirty work. Apply the Socratic Method on yourself. Get into the nitty-gritty. And get uncomfortable. That is the only way you will succeed in controlling your brain. Let us discuss strategy. Now, we all know our brains are nice and wrinkly. This map is a very unique one, because it maps a very special wrinkle. Cerebrum Mons, and its great peak of self-love and respect. This, my friend, lies within your own very brain. It is up to us to reach the peak. This map, this whole journey, this isn't some unknown territory, but it is merely unexplored. As you dig deeper, all the high and low points aren't new creations, but neglected territories. As you explore the dark recesses of your mind, you realize that the low dark areas are just the same as the high bright peaks. Every question about yourself, you have the answer to it. You just need to search for it. You just need to ask why. Along with the deep search of ourselves, we must now muster our army and march them towards your highest point. Every single thought is a step. Never underestimate the value of a thought. They all lead in various directions. Specifically though, they either lead you to peaks or to valleys. This is why peaks and valleys may be respectively invigorating or depressing. They are built off the reinforcement and momentum that your thoughts create. Upward momentum, if fueled with positive reinforcement, is endless. For we are forever students in the way of life. And downward momentum is dangerously endless as well. It is possible to sink lower, to where if you sink enough, you no longer are human. Sink deep enough, and you may never escape. We must avoid this at all costs. For everyone and yourself, we must see that we meet our peaks, traverse our mountains and highest peak, and stay there. Let's take the steps to reconquer our brain and reach the destination of self-love and respect. And, as with all journeys, it takes but one step to begin. To succeed in any task requires persistence. As Bruce Lee said, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Now let us apply this to our mission of reconquering our brain. On our journey to our highest peak, we of course started with one step. Now, this step, this thought, must be followed by another one. We must gain the momentum to prove ourselves superior to our valleys and worthy of our peaks. In this righteous struggle, we need every positive thought that gains you momentum towards your peak to be greeted with reinforcements. That's right. For every positive thought, I want two more. Even if they are forced, as is the nature of conquest, they will come naturally with time. This is momentum at play. Therefore, quantity will breed quality. I want you to tell yourself 10,000 positive thoughts. I need you to show your superiority over your darkness and rise. To accomplish this task, superiority of numbers and persistence is the strategy. As David Goggins said, nothing wants to stand in front of anything that is relentless. For every negative thought, I need two positive thoughts. Because no one ever reached their highest peaks alone. Additionally, one of the best morale boosters for your thought soldiers is the capture and elimination of an enemy within your mind. These are the negative influences in your life, and these things become pervasive and spread like a plague within your thoughts because they start as little weeds that grow into large and influential parasites within your mind. To recognize and distance yourself from such influences is the best thing you could do. Because to do so, you have gained better control of the thoughts that enter your brain and have reinforced your positive thoughts by eliminating unnecessary negative thoughts and distractions. There are times when we stumble into dark valleys. These are our low points. Unknowingly, we don't recognize this as a place in our mind. And we struggle to escape these valleys because their darkness is all-consuming. And sometimes, when it is very difficult to elevate oneself, we resort to escapism, rather than a true escape. Darkness isn't the only thing that consumes in the valleys of your mind. It is hard to see the light of hope in darkness. That's why you must look within and make your own light. Here, it is where you will find that even the lone glowing coal has an inferno within. When you have stumbled and tripped into your low points, you may begin to be consumed with anguish, and your thought soldiers will be eaten up by the parasites that reside in these valleys. These parasites, however, are merely negative thoughts that you have given power to. Just as your positive thought soldiers may gain momentum and be reinforced, so can your negative thoughts. In these times, though it will feel difficult, you just need to stick to the strategy as stated before. This time, however, I want you to be more aggressive with the strategy than before, because what follows the most terrible collapses are the most legendary rises. For every negative thought, force a smile and think of something positive. Every time you think of a reason to be sad, think of two reasons to be happy. These dark times of temptation are our great battles that we must win. It is here, with great vigor and discipline and grit, that you must hold out against the attacks of negative thoughts and outlast these tyrants. These are our battles. Win or lose, we must always keep on climbing and fighting. Remember, the fight for the happiness of the soul is never lost. It may only lose momentum. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. And that makes me happy, for it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, within me there's something stronger, something better, pushing right back. Albert Camus. This is the strategy to reconquer your brain, my friend. It is simple and easy to fall back on. We are all only ever one positive thought away from changing ourselves and the world. I hope it serves you well, and that at the end of the journey you are proud, and that you feel a great love and respect for yourself. Remember though, once you've reached the summit of self-love and respect, that there are many more peaks to climb. In your legendary story of greatness, this map is but a page in your grand novel. The torch of greatness has been passed down to us. Let us carry it to great heights never seen before. Thank you for watching.